My dad shoved my 10-year-old daughter off her chair at the Christmas table. That seat is for my real grandkid. Get out. She hit the floor in front of 14 relatives, and nobody moved. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I said 4 words. My mom dropped her wine glass. My dad went pale. 3 days later, he received a certified letter, and his hands wouldn't stop shaking. My name is Dana. I'm 34, a single mom, and an ER nurse. And this is the story of how I stopped begging my family for a seat at their table and started building my own. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Now let me take you back to the morning of December 25th, the day everything changed. Most mornings started the same way, 5:30 a.m. in a cottage the size of a 2-car garage, tucked behind my parents' house at 14 Birchwood Lane. I'd stand barefoot on cold tile, pouring coffee into the only mug that didn't have a chip, while the baseboard heater ticked and groaned like it was personally offended by December in Connecticut. Lily would still be asleep in the next room, 10 years old that winter. Brown hair fanned across the pillow, one arm wrapped around a stuffed bear so threadbare you could see the stitching through its belly. She'd had that bear since the day I brought her home from foster care. 3 years old, silent, gripping my index finger like it was the last solid thing in the world. 7 years later, she wasn't silent anymore. She drew constantly, birds, houses, families at dinner tables. She read chapter books 2 grades above her level, and every few weeks, usually at bedtime, she'd look up at me and ask the same question. "Mommy, am I really yours forever?" Every time I gave the same answer. I'd been paying my father $1,100 a month to live in that cottage. Zelle transfer, first of every month, no exceptions. I had 84 screenshots on my phone, every single payment time-stamped, going back 7 years. I kept them because I'm an ER nurse, and ER nurses document everything. That's what we do. We chart, we note, we timestamp. My father said a lease wasn't necessary. "We're family," he told me. "We don't need paper." I believed him for 7 years. I need you to remember that number, 84 payments, because it's going to matter later. Christmas at the Thornton house was a production. Not a celebration, a production. My father directed it like a man who'd spent 30 years managing a bank branch and never learned to stop managing. Every year, the long oak table set for 14 to 16. The good china. Cloth napkins folded into something architectural. A seating chart, unwritten but absolute. Richard Thornton at the head, my mother Vivian to his left, my older sister Brooke to his right, with her daughter Harper beside her, close enough to Grandpa that he could cut her meat and tell everyone how gifted she was. Harper was 8. She sat with the adults. Lily and I sat at the far end, near the kitchen door, where the draft came through and you could hear the dishwasher running. Every year. If you're wondering whether the seating was accidental, it wasn't. Nothing my father did was accidental. 2 days before Christmas, my mother called. Not to ask what Lily wanted for a gift, not to check if Lily had grown out of last year's dress. She called to say, "Don't let Lily wear anything too flashy. Brooke just bought Harper a new dress, and you know how Harper gets if she's not the center of attention." I pressed my tongue against the back of my teeth and said, "Sure, Mom." That night, I picked out a simple red sweater for Lily. She looked at herself in the bathroom mirror, smoothed the front with both palms, and asked me, "Mommy, can I sit next to Harper this year? At the big table?" I told her I'd try. I should have known then. The seating chart wasn't about chairs. It was about who counted. And in my father's house, my daughter had never counted. Christmas Day. 4:17 p.m. The sky had gone the color of wet cement, and a thin snow was coming down, the kind that doesn't stick but makes everything look like it's inside a snow globe, pretty and sealed. Lily carried a rolled-up piece of paper in both hands, held out in front of her like a candle at a church procession. She'd been working on it for 2 weeks, a painting on thick watercolor stock titled, "Our Family Christmas." Every person in the family, drawn in bright gouache, Grandpa, Grandma, Aunt Brooke, Harper, even Great-Grandma June in her wheelchair. Everyone smiling. Everyone at the same table. She wanted to give it to my father before dinner. He met us at the front door. The pine wreath smelled sharp. The porch light made the snow look gold. My father looked at Lily, then past her, the way you look past a piece of furniture you've stopped noticing. He gave her a short nod. No hug. No Merry Christmas, Lily. Then Harper ran up behind him, and the whole man changed. He crouched down, arms wide. There's my girl. Look at that dress. You are a princess. He held Harper for a good 10 seconds. I counted. Inside, Brooke was arranging place cards on the oak table. I scanned for Lily's name. It wasn't there. The main table had 14 settings. At the back wall near the kitchen door, someone had unfolded a metal card table, the kind you use for poker, and set it with a single plate, a single fork, a paper napkin. One chair. Harper was 8 and sat with the adults. Lily was 10 and sat alone at a card table behind the kitchen door. I leaned toward my mother in the hallway. Mom, Lily can sit at the main table, right? She's 10. Vivian didn't look at me. Don't make this a thing, Dana. Dinner was halfway done when it happened. I'd been watching Lily through the kitchen doorway, alone at that card table, eating quietly, her painting rolled up beside her plate because she hadn't found the right moment to give it to my father. She kept glancing at the main table, at Harper laughing, at my father carving seconds of ham for Harper's plate while telling a story about her ballet recital. Then Lily stood up. She picked up her painting, walked to the main table, and slid into the one empty chair. The seat meant for my cousin Jeff, who hadn't shown. It was next to me. She sat down, unrolled the painting on the tablecloth, and smiled. I made this for everyone, she said. My father set down his carving knife. The room didn't go quiet. It went vacuum-sealed. 14 forks stopped moving at the same time. He stood, walked around the table, stood over my daughter. That seat is for family. His voice was level, informational, like he was reading a bank policy. She is family, Dad, I said. He didn't look at me. He looked down at Lily. That seat is for my real grandkid. Get out. His hand closed on the shoulder of Lily's red sweater. He pulled. Not a punch, not a slap. A yank, sharp, deliberate, the way you'd pull a dog off a couch. Lily's body twisted. The chair legs scraped. She went off the seat sideways and hit the hardwood floor with a sound I will hear for the rest of my life. The painting landed face down beside her. 5 seconds of silence. I counted them the way I count seconds between a crash and a code in the ER. 5 full seconds. 14 adults. Nobody stood. Vivian looked at her plate. Brooke cut a piece of ham. Lily didn't scream. She looked up at me from the floor, eyes wide, and whispered one word. Mommy? I don't remember standing up. I remember being up. I remember the feel of the napkin leaving my lap, the scrape of my chair, and then I was already moving. I didn't shout. I didn't lunge. 7 years of ER training will do that to you. When the worst thing in the room is happening, you don't scream. You act. Your hands go steady. Your voice drops. I crouched down, slid my arms under Lily, and lifted her. She was shaking, small, fast tremors, the way a child shakes when she doesn't understand what just happened, but her body does. I held her against my chest, one hand on the back of her head. Then I looked at my father. He was still standing. His hand was still half raised, fingers open, like the ghost of Lily's sweater was still in his grip. I said 4 words. We are done here. Behind me, I heard a sharp crack, glass on wood. My mother's wine glass had slipped from her hand onto the table. Red wine pooled across the white cloth like an ink blot. My father's face went the color of the snow outside. I picked up Lily's painting from the floor, took our coats from the hallway closet, and walked out the front door. Nobody followed us. The snow had picked up. It stuck to Lily's eyelashes. She whispered into my neck, Are we going home? We're going to our home, I said. In the car, engine running, heat blasting, I pulled up the back of Lily's sweater. A red mark, already darkening, ran across her lower back where she'd hit the chair leg on the way down. I took 3 photos. Timestamp, December 25th, 7:42 p.m. Then I sat in the driveway of our cottage for 10 full minutes, engine idling, snow collecting on the windshield, and made 3 decisions that would change everything. By 9 o'clock that night, my phone had become a weapon pointed at me. 11 missed calls, 23 text messages. I read every single one, and I screenshotted every single one, because that's what you do when the gaslighting starts. You save the receipts before someone tells you it never happened. My mother, you ruined Christmas. Your father barely touched her. She's being dramatic, and so are you. Brooke, Lily slipped off the chair by herself. I saw the whole thing. Stop twisting it into something it wasn't. My Aunt Linda, Richard didn't mean it like that. He's under a lot of stress. Come back tomorrow and apologize. Be the bigger person. 23 messages. Not one of them asked if Lily was okay. I set the phone face down on the kitchen counter and ran Lily a bath. I sat on the closed toilet lid and read her 2 chapters of her book while the bathroom filled with steam and the smell of the lavender soap she liked. She was quiet. Not the scared quiet from the floor. A thinking quiet. At bedtime, she looked up at me from her pillow and said, "Is Grandpa mad because I'm not really his?" I brushed the hair off her forehead. "You are really mine. That's what matters." She fell asleep holding the threadbare bear with both arms. I went to the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and created a Google Doc. Title: Incident Log, Thornton Family. I sat there until 1 in the morning, typing every incident I could remember from the last 7 years. Dates, quotes, who was present, things said to Lily, things said about Lily when she was in the next room. 7 years of notes, organized by year. I didn't reply to a single message that night. I had screenshots. That was enough. December 26th, 8:14 a.m. Lily was still asleep when the knocking started. Not a polite knock. The flat of a palm against the cottage door, hard enough to rattle the chain lock. I knew who it was before I looked through the peephole. My father stood on the step in his good overcoat, breath clouding in the cold. No casserole dish, no apology face. I opened the door 6 inches and kept my body between him and the hallway to Lily's room. He didn't say good morning. "You embarrassed me in front of my family." His voice was the same one he used to use on tellers who miscounted. Controlled, clipped, but with a current running underneath. "That girl needs to learn her place, and so do you." "Her name is Lily," I said. "She's your granddaughter, and you pushed a child." "I barely touched her." He leaned forward. "She's not even blood, Dana. She doesn't—" "This conversation is over. Do not come to this door again until you're ready to apologize to Lily." I closed the door. Deadbolt. Chain. He knocked again. Louder. Then his voice came through the wood, the way sound comes through hospital walls at 3 a.m. Muffled, but unmistakable. "This is my property. I can come whenever I want to my own property." I pulled out my phone, opened voice memos, and held it 6 inches from the door. He kept going for 47 seconds. 47 seconds of my property, my house, not even blood, and ungrateful. I stood there, phone steady, counting Mississippis the way I count compressions during a code. Timestamp: December 26, 10:14 a.m. He called it his property. I had it recorded, and somewhere in the back of my mind, a question I'd never thought to ask started forming. Whose property was it, really? I need you to understand. Christmas wasn't the first time. It was just the time he used his hands. The cruelty had always been there. It was just quieter. The kind you can talk yourself out of noticing if you try hard enough. Lily's 5th birthday. My father forgot. Not forgot the way busy people forget. Forgot the way you forget something that was never on your calendar. Harper's 5th birthday, 6 months later. He rented a bounce castle and a snow cone machine and posted 11 photos on Facebook captioned, "My little princess turns 5. Brooke received $3,000 a year from our grandmother's education trust, money Grandma June set up for all great-grandchildren. I assumed Lily was included. I never checked. That would matter later. When I adopted Lily, I was 27, single, fresh out of nursing school with $40,000 in student debt and a 1-bedroom apartment that smelled like the restaurant below it. My family's reaction was not what the brochures prepare you for. My father: "At least marry someone first. Brooke, you're going to ruin your life." My mother, quieter but worse: "What if she has problems?" She meant Lily. The year Lily turned 6, my mother said, in front of Lily, at Thanksgiving, between the cranberry sauce and the green beans, "Well, she doesn't look like us, does she?" I said nothing. I cut my turkey and said nothing, because I was living in my father's cottage, paying my father's rent, and I was terrified that if I made noise, Lily would lose the only extended family she had. 7 years. 84 rent payments. I thought I was buying Lily a place in this family, but you can't buy a seat at a table where you were never welcome. You're just paying for the privilege of being tolerated. And I was so busy paying, I forgot to check who actually owned the house. December 27th. I called Grandma June. She lived at Maplewood Assisted Living, 40 minutes east, in a single room with a quilt on the bed and 3 decades of school photos on the wall. 82 years old. Arthritic hands, sharp mind, and the kind of quiet authority that comes from teaching third graders for 30 years. She never needed to raise her voice because every child in the room already knew she meant business. I told her what happened. All of it. The card table, the chair, the floor, the sound. She went silent. Not the silence of confusion. The silence of a woman counting to 10 before she speaks so the words come out precise. He pushed Lily onto the floor? Yes, ma'am. Another silence. 10 seconds. I counted. Then, Dana, I need to ask you something. Are you and Lily still living in the cottage behind the house? Yes. And who told you that house belongs to your father? My stomach dropped. Everyone says it's his. He inherited it. Didn't he? The sound Grandma June made was not a laugh. It was the ghost of one. I never transferred the deed, sweetheart. That house is still mine. Every brick, every shingle, every inch of that cottage your father charges you rent for. He has been living in my house for 15 years and telling everyone it's his. I sat down on the edge of my bed. The room tilted slightly, the way it does when a patient you thought was stable suddenly isn't. I'm calling Marcus, she said. You remember Marcus Webb, from your college? He handles my estate. I did remember Marcus. Trust and estate attorney, quiet, thorough, the kind of lawyer who reads footnotes. Grandma, what are you going to... Nobody pushes my great-grandbaby and keeps living in my house. Nobody. She hung up. And the question I'd been forming since my father's voice came through that door, whose property is it really, had just been answered. Marcus Webb called me the next morning at 8:15. He didn't waste time on small talk. Lawyers who handle estates for 82-year-old women on a mission don't have time for pleasantries. I pulled the county land records online last night, he said. 14 Birchwood Lane. The deed is recorded in the name of June A. Whitmore. There's no transfer, no quitclaim deed, no life estate, nothing. Your father has 0 legal ownership of that property. I stared at the wall above my kitchen sink, at a water stain shaped like a comma that I'd been meaning to paint over for 3 years. He's been an occupant, Marcus continued, essentially a tenant without a lease. And since he represented to you that the cottage was his property and collected rent from you, we have a situation. What kind of situation? Unjust enrichment. You've been paying rent to a person who had no legal right to collect it. 7 years, $1,100 a month. Dana, that's $92,400. I set my coffee down because my hand wasn't steady enough to hold it. $92,400. I did the math differently in my head. That was 7 years of overnight shifts. That was holidays I worked so Lily could have birthday presents. That was the time I picked up a double on Thanksgiving because the rent was due on the 1st and my checking account had $800 in it, all of it paid to a man who didn't own a single brick of that house. Marcus sent the scanned deed to my email 10 minutes later. I opened it on my phone. There it was, recorded at the county clerk's office in neat black type. June A. Whitmore, clear, permanent, undeniable. I saved it in 3 places. I was an ER nurse. I documented everything. And I was just getting started. The deed was the first crack. The trust was the canyon. Marcus called again that afternoon. He'd requested the account records from the bank that held Grandma June's education trust, a revocable trust she'd created in 2016, funded with $120,000, designated for the educational benefit of all great-grandchildren of June A. Whitmore. She'd named my father as trustee because he was, in her words, good with money. I could hear Marcus turning pages. The original balance was $120,000, he said. The current balance is $11,340. I pulled the phone away from my ear and looked at it, the way you look at a machine that's just given you a reading you don't trust. Where did the rest go? 14 withdrawals between 2019 and 2024. Every single one is coded as educational expenses, Harper Thornton Hayes. He paused. Dana, Harper attends public school. There's no tuition. $108,660, withdrawn in Brooke's daughter's name, for an education that was free. I thought about Brooke's kitchen renovation 2 years ago, the Cancun trip. The designer bags that showed up in her Instagram stories with captions like, "Treat yourself, and because I deserve it." And Lily? I asked. There's not a single withdrawal in Lily's name. Another pause, longer this time. In fact, Lily isn't listed as a beneficiary at all. The trust says all great-grandchildren, but your father, as trustee, never added her. He had the administrative duty to include her. He chose not to. $108,660 gone. And my daughter's name was nowhere in the document, not because she wasn't eligible, because my father made sure she wasn't. I closed my eyes, breathed, and for the first time since Christmas, I felt something colder than anger. Marcus set up a 3-way call that evening, me, him, and Grandma June. I sat at the kitchen table with the laptop open and Lily's door closed, the sound of her audiobook playing softly down the hall, some chapter book about a girl who befriends a dragon. The kind of story where things turn out right. Marcus walked Grandma June through everything. The deed, the rent, the trust, the 14 withdrawals, the missing beneficiary. He spoke the way he always did, level, precise, like he was reading a lab report. When he finished, Grandma June went quiet. I watched the clock on the microwave. 15 seconds. I was counting again. In the ER, you learn that silence can mean 2 things: a patient crashing or a patient deciding to fight. Then she spoke, and her voice was so calm it could have frosted glass. Marcus, I need 3 things done before New Year's. First, freeze the trust. Today. No more withdrawals by anyone. Second, I want a full accounting from Richard. Every dollar, every receipt. He has 30 days. Third, prepare an amendment. The sole beneficiary of the Education Trust, effective immediately, is Lily Marie Thornton. Marcus said, Yes, ma'am. And the house? They've been living in my house for 15 years without paying me a cent and charging my granddaughter rent. Her voice didn't shake. It sharpened. Give them a proper 30-day notice to vacate. Certified mail. I started to say something. Grandma, are you sure? Mom will... She cut me off. Your mother watched a grown man push a child onto the floor, Dana. And she picked up her fork, I'm sure. I heard the click of her hanging up, clean and final, the way she used to close her classroom door after the last student filed out. The trust was frozen. The clock was ticking. And I hadn't raised my voice once. December 29th, 4 a.m. Lily asleep, cottage quiet, kitchen table turned into a command center. I'm a triage nurse. When a trauma comes in, you don't panic, you organize. You assess what's bleeding, what's broken, what can wait, and what can't. Then you move, one task at a time, until the board is clear. I applied the same logic to my father. Folder 1, the manila one, physical copies, 3 printed photos of Lily's bruise with timestamps, a printed copy of the medical report from Dr. Patel, Lily's pediatrician, who documented contusion on lower back consistent with blunt impact against furniture edge during our visit on December 26th. Folder 2, digital, backed up to cloud, the Google Doc incident log, now 23 pages covering 7 years. 23 screenshots of text messages from Christmas night, each with timestamps and sender names. The 47-second voice memo of my father at the door. 84 Zelle payment confirmations totaling $92,400. The scanned county deed. The trust account statements showing 14 unauthorized withdrawals. 7 items. 7 years of silence, organized into evidence. I called Dr. Amara Singh's office when they opened at 9, a pediatric counselor in Glastonbury who specialized in children processing family disruption. First available appointment, January 2nd. Marcus emailed me 3 drafts by noon. The 30-day notice to vacate, a demand letter for full trust accounting, the trust amendment naming Lily as sole beneficiary, ready for Grandma June's notarized signature. I printed everything, stacked it, clipped it. Then I sat back in my chair and realized something I'd never felt before in that cottage. I wasn't asking anyone for permission. I wasn't tiptoeing around anyone's ego. I wasn't measuring my words against the cost of rent. For the first time in 7 years, I was just acting. It felt like breathing after being underwater. December 30th. The call I should have made 5 days earlier. The call I should have made years ago, if I'm being honest. But that's a different kind of reckoning. Marcus had walked me through it the night before. An adult used physical force on a 10-year-old child, causing her to fall and sustain visible bruising. Under Connecticut law, that meets the threshold for a report to DCF, Department of Children and Families. You can file as the parent. I sat at the kitchen table at 10 a.m., with the hotline number written on a post-it. Lily was at the other end of the cottage, cross-legged on the living room rug, painting a snow owl with her watercolors. I could see the back of her head from where I sat, brown hair, still messy from sleep, bent in concentration. I dialed. My hand shook. Not from fear. From the weight of 7 years pressing down on a phone that weighed 6 ounces. Reporting your own father to Child Protective Services is not something they prepare you for in nursing school. It's not something anyone prepares you for anywhere. The intake worker was patient. I gave dates, descriptions, the medical report reference number from Dr. Patel. I described the bruise, the chair, the 14 witnesses who did nothing. I submitted a written follow-up statement by email that afternoon with the photos attached. Case opened, confirmation number recorded, investigation timeline, 30 to 45 days. A caseworker would contact Richard Thornton for an interview. I set the phone down, looked across the room at Lily, who was holding her paintbrush up to the light, checking the color. She didn't know I'd just made that call. She didn't need to. That was my job. To make the calls she couldn't, so she could keep painting snow owls in the safety of a warm room. If you've ever held a phone in your hand, knowing you should have dialed years ago, you understand exactly what that moment cost. And I need to tell you, this story is far from over. What happened next is the part I still can't believe. If you're with me, hit subscribe and drop a comment. What would you have done that Christmas night? Let's keep going. New Year's Eve. While most of Connecticut was uncorking champagne and watching the ball get ready to drop, Marcus Webb was standing at the post office in downtown Hartford, holding a white envelope stamped with the words that were about to dismantle my father's entire self-image. Certified mail. Return receipt requested. Inside, a formal 30-day notice to vacate, addressed to Richard and Vivian Thornton, for the property at 14 Birchwood Lane. The language was clean, almost gentle in its precision. Property owned by June A. Whitmore. No lease agreement exists between the parties. Occupants are hereby notified to vacate the premises within 30 days of receipt. A process server delivered a duplicate copy in person that same afternoon. Belt and suspenders, Marcus said. You don't leave room for I never got it. A separate envelope went out the same day. A demand letter to Richard Thornton in his capacity as trustee of the Whitmore Education Trust, requiring a full accounting of all withdrawals within 30 days. The letter referenced breach of fiduciary duty in language that was polite the way a scalpel is polite. Technically civil, functionally devastating. At 3 o'clock, Marcus drove to Maplewood Assisted Living. Grandma June signed the trust amendment at the table in her room, witnessed by Marcus and notarized by a mobile notary. Sole beneficiary, effective immediately, Lily Marie Thornton. I spent New Year's Eve on the couch with Lily. We ate popcorn and watched the countdown on TV. She fell asleep with her head on my lap at 11:40, 20 minutes before midnight. I pulled a blanket over her and listened to the muffled sound of fireworks from somewhere down the street. Is next year going to be better, Mommy? She'd asked before dozing off. I stroked her hair. Next year is going to be ours. Somewhere across town, a certified letter was sitting in my father's mailbox, ticking like a clock. January 2nd. Marcus texted me at 10:09 a.m. Return receipt signed. 10:07 a.m. He has it. 13 minutes later, my phone rang. I didn't need to look at the screen. I could feel the vibration pattern the way you feel a storm system moving in. Heavy, electric, inevitable. My father's voice came through at a pitch I'd never heard from him before. Not the controlled bank manager tone, not the quiet threat from the cottage door. This was something cracked open, raw, and wild. Your grandmother is senile. This is my house. I have lived in that house for 15 years. It is mine. You turned a confused old woman against her own family, and I will sue every last one of you. I let him finish. Then, you'll need to discuss that with Marcus Webb. His number is on the letter. I hung up. 10:35. Vivian's turn. The crying was already in progress when I picked up. How could you do this to us? We're your parents. We took you in when you had nothing. We let you live in the cottage. You charged me rent for a house that wasn't yours. I have every Zelle receipt. I hung up. 11 o'clock. Brooke. I saw the name on the screen and let it go to voicemail. The message was 40 seconds of threats about lawyers, elder abuse, and how I was going to pay for this. I saved it, filed it, moved on. That afternoon, Marcus told me Richard had called Grandma June directly, screamed at her for 4 minutes. Grandma June waited for him to finish, then said, in the same voice she'd used to quiet a classroom of 8-year-olds, I'm 82, Richard, not stupid. You have 29 days. She hung up first. The calls didn't work, so they switched tactics. First week of January. Brooke sent a group text to every relative in the family, 23 people, including cousins I hadn't spoken to since Obama was in office. I know because my cousin Rachel forwarded it to me within the hour with a single comment. Thought you should see this. The text read, just wanted everyone to know what's happening. Dana is manipulating Grandma June, who, as many of you know, has been declining mentally. She is trying to steal the family home and turn Grandma against Mom and Dad. Grandma has signs of dementia and doesn't understand what she's signing. Please call her and talk some sense into her before this goes further. This is breaking Mom's heart. Every sentence. A lie pressed flat and smooth, the way you iron a crease into a shirt you want to look respectable. I screenshotted it, filed it. Then my Aunt Linda called. Linda, who texted me on Christmas night to say Richard didn't mean it, be the bigger person. Her voice was careful now. Testing. Dana, is it true you're trying to kick your parents out of their home? It's not their home, Aunt Linda. It's Grandma June's. Dad lied, and he pushed Lily. Richard would never. I have a recording. Silence. Then, what? I sent her the 47-second voice memo. The one with my property, and not even blood, and ungrateful. I didn't say anything else. I just sent it and waited. 3 minutes later, Linda texted back 2 words. Oh God. 2 of my cousins unfriended me on Facebook that week. My great-aunt Patty sent a message that said, you're tearing this family apart over a chair. I didn't respond. I didn't post. I didn't argue. Brooke had texted 23 people. I sent 1 recording to 1 person. Receipts don't need an audience. They need the right ears. January 2nd. The same day my father received the letter and started screaming. While he was calling lawyers and threatening lawsuits, I was in a waiting room in Glastonbury with magazines from 2022 and a fish tank that hummed like a meditation app. Lily was behind the closed door with Dr. Amara Singh. 45 minutes. I sat in the blue vinyl chair and stared at the fish, a fat orange one going in circles, and tried not to think about what my daughter might be saying in there. When the door opened, Dr. Singh asked Lily to pick a sticker from the treasure box in the corner, then stepped into the hallway with me. She was small, composed, the kind of person who speaks like every word has been weighed on a scale first. Lily asked me something today, she said. She asked me if she's real. I felt the floor tilt. She said her grandfather has been telling her she's not a real grandchild for years, not just Christmas. She said the other kids at family events repeat it. Not real, not blood, not one of us. She's been carrying that much longer than you think. I pressed my back against the hallway wall. The fluorescent light buzzed above us. She's resilient, Dr. Singh said. But she needs to hear, from the actions around her, not just words, that she belongs. She will, I said. I promise. On the drive home, Lily sat in the back seat, peeling the edges of her sticker, a purple triceratops. She said without looking up, Dr. Singh told me feelings aren't wrong or right. They just are. That's true, baby. Then is it okay that I'm mad at Grandpa? It is absolutely okay. She nodded and went back to her sticker. I could protect her from a shove. I had. But I hadn't protected her from the words. The years of quiet, daily erosion that taught her to question whether she was real. That failure sat in my chest like a stone. And I swore right there on Route 17 with the heater blowing and the Triceratops sticker half peeled that it would be the last time I was late. January 15th. The accounting deadline hit like a timer going off in an empty room. Marcus called at 4 p.m. His voice had the particular flatness of a man who expected exactly this. No response from your father. No accounting. No receipts. No communication from his attorney. If he even has one. The 30-day window for the trust accounting has closed. I was in the break room at the hospital, still in scrubs, eating a granola bar that tasted like pressed sawdust. Through the window, I could see the parking lot dusted with old snow, gray and pitted. What happens now? Under Connecticut statute, a trustee who fails to provide an accounting upon demand from the grantor, or a beneficiary, can be removed by the probate court. I'm filing a petition tomorrow to remove Richard as trustee of the Whitmore Education Trust and requesting a court-ordered audit of all disbursements. I let that settle. A court-ordered audit. Every withdrawal, every fake educational expense, every dollar that went to Cancun and kitchen granite and designer bags, all of it pulled into the light under oath. One more thing, Marcus said. Brooke retained an attorney. He called me this morning, off the record, and I mean truly off the record. He told me her position is, quote, extremely weak, and he's advised her to settle. I almost smiled. Almost. And the house? The 30-day notice was served December 31st. They have until January 30th to vacate. If they don't, we file an eviction action. But Dana, I don't think it'll come to that. Your father is a man who can't afford to have an eviction on public record. His pride won't let it get there. I looked at the calendar on the break room wall. Someone had drawn a smiley face on the 30th. 15 days. After 15 years of lies, my father had 15 days. January 18th. 3 days before Grandma June's family meeting, and 12 days before the vacate deadline. My mother came to the cottage alone. No call ahead, no text. Just the crunch of her good shoes on the frozen gravel path, and then a knock. Not the flat palm assault my father had used, but something softer. Tentative. The knock of a woman who'd practiced what she was going to say in the car. I opened the door. Lily was at school. The cottage smelled like burned toast and the lavender plug-in Lily had chosen at the dollar store. Vivian's eyes were red. Her hands were clasped in front of her the way they always were when she wanted you to see her suffering before she made her ask. Dana, please. Her voice broke on the second word. I'm begging you. Drop all of this. Your father is having chest pains. He can't sleep. He's not eating. I'll talk to him about Lily. I promise I will. Just stop the letters. Stop the lawyers. We can work this out as a family. There it was, the word, family, loaded and aimed, the way it always was. Mom, did you talk to him about Lily in the last 7 years? When he called her the kid? When he skipped her birthday? When he didn't put her name in the trust? He's not a bad man, He pushed my daughter onto the floor. You watched. You picked up your fork. She flinched. The tears came harder. Where will we go, Dana? Where will we live? That's not my problem to solve anymore. You had 7 years of my rent to save. She stood there for another moment, waiting, I think, for the version of me that would cave. That Dana was gone. I closed the door, leaned against it, pressed my palms flat against the wood. My hands shook, not from weakness, from the physical effort of not opening that door again. January 20th, Maplewood Assisted Living. The community room on the second floor. Linoleum tile, fluorescent lights, a long folding table that probably hosted bingo on Tuesdays. It smelled like institutional coffee and lemon floor cleaner. Grandma June had made the calls herself, each one brief, each one identical. I need you at Maplewood on Saturday at 2. This is not optional. When I walked in, Marcus was already there. Navy blazer, laptop bag, the quiet competence of a man who'd done this before. He was connecting his laptop to the wall-mounted TV that usually showed weather forecasts and meal schedules. I sat 3 chairs from the end, set my hands on the table. I didn't bring the manila folder. I didn't need to. This wasn't my meeting. They arrived one by one. Aunt Linda, tight-lipped, clutching her purse strap. 2 cousins, Derek and Nate, who'd unfriended me on Facebook but apparently couldn't unfriend Grandma June. Brooke, in sunglasses indoors, like she was arriving at a deposition she hadn't studied for. Richard and Vivian came last. My father walked in the way he walked into everything. Chin up, shoulders back. The posture of a man who'd spent 30 years behind a desk people had to stand in front of. Vivian trailed behind him, already crying softly. Then Grandma June was wheeled to the head of the table. She wore a gray cardigan buttoned to the top. Her reading glasses hung on a chain. In front of her, on the table, was a manila folder identical to the one I kept at home. Richard sat down, face flushed. "Mom, this is ridiculous. Whatever Dana's told you." "Sit down, Richard." Her voice cut the room like a ruler on a desk. "I have a few things to show everyone." Marcus opened his laptop. The TV screen flickered to life, and the room went very, very still. This is the moment. Everything Dana documented, every screenshot, every receipt, every recording she filed away instead of firing back, it all leads right here, to this room. If you're on the edge of your seat, hit that like button and tell me in the comments, do you think Richard will finally face what he did? Stay with me. Grandma June spoke the way she taught. Slowly, clearly, with the patience of someone who knows the class isn't going to like the lesson. 15 years ago, I allowed Richard and Vivian to move into my home on Birchwood Lane. It was a kindness, not a transfer. She nodded at Marcus. He placed a printed sheet in front of every person at the table. This is the county land record for 14 Birchwood Lane. The owner, today, as it has been since 1987, is June A. Whitmore, me. Richard's jaw moved, but nothing came out. The color was leaving his face the way heat leaves a room when you open a window in January. 10 years ago, Grandma June continued, I created an education trust for all my great-grandchildren, all of them. I named Richard as trustee because I trusted him. She paused on the word trusted the way you pause on a crack in the ice. Marcus pressed a key. The TV screen lit up with a bank statement, rows of transactions, dates, amounts, neatly highlighted in yellow. These are the withdrawal records from that trust. 14 withdrawals over 5 years. Total, $108,660. Every one of them labeled educational expenses. Harper. She turned to Brooke. Brooke's sunglasses were off now. Her face had the color and texture of skim milk. Harper goes to public school, Brooke. There is no tuition. The room made a sound, not a gasp, more like the collective inhale of 6 people understanding something at the same time. Grandma June turned back to the table. Her voice didn't waver. And Lily Thornton, my great-granddaughter, Dana's daughter, was never added as a beneficiary. Not because she wasn't eligible, because Richard, as trustee, decided she wasn't family. She let that word hang in the air, family, like a nail driven through the center of the table. Richard stood up. The chair behind him screeched on the linoleum. I was going to transfer the deed. I was managing the trust properly. Brooke needed money for Harper's enrichment, and I made a judgment call as trustee, and show me one tuition receipt, Grandma June said. The room held its breath. Show me one invoice, one enrollment letter, one line item that proves $108,000 went to that child's education. Nothing. Richard's mouth opened and closed. He looked at Brooke. Brooke looked at her hands. Mom, Brooke started. Tell her. It was for activities and tutoring and enrichment programs. Vivian said nothing. She stared at the folded hands in her lap, the way she'd stared at her plate on Christmas night. Some people have one response to everything. Hers was disappearing. Then Aunt Linda spoke. She'd been sitting at the far end of the table, silent since she walked in, and when her voice came out it was low and shaking, not with tears, but with the kind of anger that comes when you realize you've been lied to and defended the liar. Richard, you told me Dana was the problem. You told all of us. You said she was bitter and dramatic and turning Grandma against the family. She held up the bank statement. This isn't bitter. This is theft. Derek and Nate stood up without a word and walked out. The door clicked shut behind them. They didn't slam it. They didn't need to. Marcus spoke next, his voice level and professional as a court filing. For the record, Mrs. Whitmore has amended the Education Trust. The sole beneficiary is now Lily Marie Thornton. Mrs. Whitmore has also issued a 30-day notice to vacate the property at Birchwood Lane. A petition to remove Richard Thornton as trustee has been filed with the probate court. Richard sat down slowly, like a man whose legs had stopped reporting for duty. His hands, resting on the table, were trembling. The room was quiet in the way a room is quiet after something has broken. Not peaceful, not resolved, just empty of everything except the sound of the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Grandma June turned to me. Her hand, small and knotted with arthritis, rested near my arm on the table. "Do you have anything to say, sweetheart?" I hadn't planned to speak. I'd come to listen, to watch, to let the paperwork do what paperwork does when people have spent years lying without it. But my grandmother asked, and I stood up, and the words came out the way they'd been waiting to come out for 7 years. Not loud, not fast, just clear. I looked at my father. "I spent 7 years trying to earn a seat at your table for my daughter. She drew you a painting that night. It was called Our Family Christmas. She drew every single one of you in it, and you shoved her off a chair for it." I looked at my mother. "I paid you $92,400 in rent for a house you didn't own, and when your husband pushed my child onto the floor, you picked up your fork." I looked at Brooke. "You took $108,000 that was meant for my daughter's education, and then you sent a group text to 23 people telling them I was the one stealing." I stopped, let the silence sit. "I'm not asking for an apology. I stopped waiting for one of those a long time ago." I looked at my father one last time. "I don't negotiate with people who push children. Lily and I are done." I sat down. Under the table, Grandma June's hand found mine. She squeezed once. Firm, deliberate, the grip of a woman who'd raised 2 generations and wasn't finished yet. No one in that room said a word. The next 10 days moved with the slow, grinding certainty of paperwork doing its job. January 30th, vacate day. Marcus confirmed it by text at 6 p.m. "They're out. Confirmed with the neighbor. Moving truck left at 4. Richard and Vivian relocated to a 2-bedroom apartment in Meriden. $1,800 a month. The first rent check either of them had written in 15 years. My father didn't fight it. Marcus was right. Richard Thornton was a man who'd spent a lifetime building an image, and an eviction filing on the public record would have cracked it like a hammer through a window. He went quietly. That was the most dignity he'd shown in months. Second week of February. The probate court granted the petition to remove Richard as trustee. The judge's order was 3 pages long and included the phrase, "failure to fulfill fiduciary duties." Marcus Webb was appointed successor trustee by Grandma June. Trust balance at transfer, $11,340, plus a $40,000 deposit from Grandma June's personal savings. Lily's education fund, $51,340. Her name, finally, on the first page. Third week of February. The DCF investigation concluded. Finding, indicated. The caseworker's report documented the physical contact, the bruise, the medical report, and the 14 witnesses who did nothing. Richard was mandated to complete an anger management program. Failure to comply could result in a restricted contact order. Marcus sent my father a final demand, repayment of $14,200, 12 months of rent, the maximum recoverable under the settlement Grandma June agreed to, in order to end it cleanly. Richard had 60 days. The cashier's check arrived in 43, $14,200. It wouldn't replace what those years cost, but it would put 6 months of rent in a savings account with Lily's name on it. Brooke held out longer than my father. But receipts don't care about stubbornness. First week of March. Marcus, in his capacity as successor trustee, sent a formal demand to Brooke Thornton Hayes, repayment of $108,660 in unauthorized trust withdrawals. The letter outlined 2 options. Option 1, full repayment on an agreed schedule. Option 2, a civil lawsuit filed by the trust for breach of fiduciary duty, with Richard named as co-defendant for authorizing the disbursements, and, potentially, a fraud referral for misrepresenting personal expenses as educational costs. Brooke's attorney called Marcus within 48 hours. They settled in mid-March. $60,000, payable at $2,500 per month over 24 months. It wasn't the full amount, but Grandma June approved it. "I want the money back for Lily," she told Marcus. "I don't want a war. Wars are expensive and they break the things you're trying to save." Every monthly payment would go directly into Lily's education trust. I heard through Aunt Linda, who had quietly stopped returning Brooke's calls, that Brooke sold her Lexus and replaced it with a used Honda. The summer trip to Turks and Caicos was cancelled, and Kevin, Brooke's husband, had apparently discovered the scope of the withdrawals for the first time when the demand letter arrived. Aunt Linda said the word she used was blindsided. I didn't feel satisfaction. I want to be honest about that. I didn't feel the rush that people in movies feel when the villain falls. I felt tired, and I felt clear, and I felt something close to relief. The way you feel when a bone is finally set after weeks of walking on it wrong. I told Marcus the same thing I'd told myself. I don't want Brooke to suffer. I want Lily to have what was always hers. March 14th. Marcus sent the email on my behalf. One paragraph addressed to Richard, Vivian, and Brooke, clean as a surgical note. I am requesting that you have no direct contact with me or with my daughter, Lily, until further notice. Any necessary communication should be directed to my attorney, Marcus Webb, at the address and number below. I didn't explain why. I didn't list grievances. I didn't leave the door open with phrases like, maybe someday, or when we're all ready. I just drew the line and stood behind it. Richard responded by mail. Not through Marcus, not through email, but through a handwritten letter slipped into the cottage mailbox. I recognized the handwriting, the same sharp slant he used on birthday cards when he remembered to send them. 4 lines. You destroyed this family. I hope you're proud of yourself. Your mother cries every night. This isn't over. I read it once, folded it, placed it in the manila folder, did not respond. In April, Vivian sent Lily a birthday card, pink envelope. Inside, 3 words in her looping cursive. Love, Grandma V. No mention of Christmas. No mention of the floor. No mention of anything that would require acknowledging what had happened. I held the card for a long time, sitting on the edge of my bed after Lily had gone to sleep. Part of me wanted to give it to her. The part of me that had spent 7 years believing any connection was better than none. I put it in a drawer instead. Not forever. Just not yet. No contact wasn't punishment. I want to be clear about that. It was the first boundary I'd ever drawn that I actually kept. It wasn't a wall built from anger. It was a door, closed gently, with a lock I chose not to hand the key to. Like the oxygen mask on an airplane. You put yours on first, so you can breathe long enough to help the person beside you. May, Connecticut, in May, smells like mud and cut grass, and the particular sweetness of apple blossoms opening along the fences on Birchwood Lane. We moved into the main house on the first Saturday of the month. Grandma June insisted. It's your home now, she said when I tried to argue. It always should have been. Marcus was handling the deed transfer, a gift deed from June Whitmore to Dana Thornton, clean and legal and real. After 15 years of my father calling it his, the house would belong to someone who'd never once claimed to own something she didn't. Lily chose the upstairs bedroom with the window overlooking the backyard. She stood in the doorway for a full minute, just looking. It was 3 times the size of her room in the cottage. Light poured through the glass and hit the hardwood floor in wide yellow stripes. This is mine, she said. This is yours. She hung one thing on the wall that first day, the painting. Our family Christmas. The watercolor from that night, edges soft from where it had hit the floor, one corner slightly creased from being carried to the car in the cold. She smoothed it flat and pressed a piece of tape on each corner. She still saw Dr. Singh every 2 weeks. One afternoon in late May, she came out of her session and said to me in the parking lot, with the sun on her face and her backpack hanging off one shoulder, Dr. Singh says I don't have to earn belonging. I just belong. I cried, right there next to the car, in broad daylight, for the first time since Christmas. Grandma June visited every Sunday. They baked, they painted, they read together on the porch while the bees worked the garden. June called her my girl. Lily called her Great-Grandma June. The education trust stood at $51,340, growing by $2,500 every month. Enough by the time Lily turned 18, for a future she could choose for herself. June. A Tuesday evening, warm enough to leave the kitchen window open. I was at the stove, wooden spoon in hand, steam rising from a pot of the pasta Lily liked, the kind with the little bow ties, because she said they looked like butterflies. The backyard was gold, birch trees catching the last of the light, a cardinal on the fence post, head tilted, watching nothing. Lily came in from the living room at a run, socks sliding on the hardwood, and wrapped her arms around my waist from behind. She pressed her face into my back, and I felt her breathe. "Mommy? Hmm? Am I really yours forever?" The question. The same one she'd asked 100 times. The one I'd always answered the same way, forever and always. Quick, automatic, a reflex like catching a ball. But this time I turned the burner down. I set the spoon on the counter. I crouched until we were eye to eye, her hands in mine, and I gave her a different answer. "You are mine, and I am yours, and this house is ours, and nobody gets to tell you different." She smiled. Not the careful smile she used at my father's table, the one that asked permission. A real smile, wide and unguarded, the kind that starts in the eyes and doesn't stop. I hadn't seen that smile since before Christmas. Later, after she was asleep, I walked past her bedroom. The door was cracked open. The hallway light fell across the wall where the painting hung. Our family Christmas. But it was different now. She'd added to it. New figures in bright gouache beside the original Dana and Lily. A small woman in a wheelchair, Grandma June. A lady with dark hair, Dr. Singh. A man in a blue blazer, Marcus. The people who showed up. The people who stayed. The people who never once asked her to prove she was real. No Richard. No Vivian. No Brooke. Smaller family. Truer one. I leaned against the doorframe and listened to my daughter breathing in a room that was hers, in a house that was ours, in a life we'd built not from silence, but from the moment I finally broke it. Family isn't the people who gave you a chair at their table. It's the people who'd never take yours away. That's my story, mine and Lily's. If you've ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your child safe, I hope this gave you permission to choose your child, every single time. If this story stayed with you, hit subscribe, leave a heart below, and check the description for the next one. Because every kid deserves someone who says, "We are done here," and means it. Thank you for staying until the end.